अब हम आमंत्रित कर रहे हैं हमारे आज के दूसरे वक्ता दिगंत विश्व शर्मा जी को, जो कि डिब्रूगढ़ विश्वविद्यालय में प्रोफेसर ऑफ प्रैक्टिस हैं और एक प्रसिद्ध अनुवादक हैं। दिगंत विश्व शर्मा जी ने अपनी स्कूली और उच्च शिक्षा में उत्कृष्ट प्रदर्शन करते हुए कई छात्रवृत्तियां और सम्मान प्राप्त किए। उन्होंने अपने करियर की शुरुआत एक जिला परिवहन अधिकारी के रूप में की थी, लेकिन आध्यात्मिकता और दर्शन में गहरी रुचि होने के कारण उन्होंने 2012 में इस पद से इस्तीफा दे दिया ताकि वे अपना जीवन श्री अरविंद, श्री रामकृष्ण और स्वामी विवेकानंद की शिक्षाओं के अनुरूप समर्पित कर सकें। एक विपुल अनुवादक के रूप में उन्होंने कई महत्वपूर्ण कृतियों का असमी भाषा में अनुवाद किया है, जिसके लिए उन्हें वर्ष 2020 में श्री अरविंद की पुस्तक द फाउंडेशंस ऑफ इंडियन कल्चर के असमी अनुवाद के लिए साहित्य अकादमी अनुवाद पुरस्कार से सम्मानित किया गया है। वर्तमान में साहित्य अकादमी की असमिया भाषा सलाहकार समिति के संयोजक व साहित्य अकादमी की सामान्य महापरिषद, जनरल काउंसिल और कार्यकारी बोर्ड, एग्जीक्यूटिव बोर्ड के सदस्य श्री दिगंत विश्व शर्मा को गुवाहाटी और डिब्रूगढ़ विश्वविद्यालयों के कार्यकारी परिषदों में भी आमंत्रित किया गया है। शिक्षा और भारतीय संस्कृति पर देश भर के संस्थानों में 1000 से अधिक व्याख्यान दे चुके श्री दिगंत विश्व शर्मा ने हाल ही में IIT गुवाहाटी में प्रोफेसर ऑफ प्रैक्टिस और गुवाहाटी विश्वविद्यालय में एडजंक्ट प्रोफेसर का पदभार संभाला है। वर्ष 2022 में डॉक्टर मोइदुल इस्लाम बोरा साहित्यिक पुरस्कार से सम्मानित श्री शर्मा ने गीता और भारतीय ज्ञान प्रणाली पर सैकड़ों ऑनलाइन व्याख्यान भी दिए हैं, जो उन्हें असम के सांस्कृतिक और शैक्षणिक परिदृश्य की एक प्रमुख हस्ती बनाते हैं। आज के उनके वक्तव्य का शीर्षक है गीता's ब्लूप्रिंट, द ट्रियून पाथ। विषय है गीता का खाका, त्रिमार्ग। आइए सर।
Namaskar. Most respected Dr. Sandhya Puresa ji, joining online, Honorable Chairman Sangeet Natak, Akademi, New Delhi, respected Sri Raju Das, Secretary Sangeet Natak, Akademi, New Delhi, my co-speaker K. Brajamani Sharma ji, my co-speaker Professor Dipti Omseri Bhallaji, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Onkur Pasariji, esteemed professors, deans, officials of Royal Global Universities, including Professor Pradip Jyoti Mahanto, Professor Indrani Singh, Professor Dhruva Bora, my dear students, friends of Royal Global University, and the distinguished cultured souls, including our most respected Padma Bhushan Jatin Goswami sir, present in this august house. First, let me confess, neither am I a scholar, nor do I possess scholarship. Why then this audacity on my part? I have a sense of offering anything and everything at the lotus feet of the Supreme Divine Mother. And this sense of surrender is the sole source of my strength and audacity. First, let me utter a revealing statement made by Maharishi Sri Aurobindo 100 years ago And in fact, my entire presentation is based on his writings only. He says, let me quote, but the point here is that the modern mind has exiled from its practical motive power two essential things. And what are those two essential things? God or the eternal, and spirituality or the God state. But according to Maharishi Sri Aurobindo, which are the master conceptions of the Gita? These are the master conceptions of the Gita. God or the eternal, number one, and number two, spirituality or the God state. Spirituality or the God state. Then let me pronounce his another quote. He says, Gita can only be understood. Gita can only be understood like any other great work of the kind by studying in its entirety and as a developing argument. It has to be studied in its entirety and as a developing argument, And then let me pronounce his third revelation. He has made many revelations about Gita. And he says, in other words, the Gita is not a book of practical ethics. Gita is not a book of practical ethics, but of the spiritual life. And my today's topic is Gita's blueprint, the triune path. Maharishi says, the whole argument of the Gita ultimately resolves into three great steps. And what are those steps? We will be explaining. But what is the purpose? He says, by which action rises out of the human. Into what? Into the divine. Action rises out of the human into the divine. But how? Leaving the bondage of the lower. For the liberty of the higher law. Leaving the bondage of the lower law. But for why? For the liberty of the higher law. And then let me explain on his writings this triune path. The triune path is actually one path, not three paths, but the triune path. So Gita's teachings takes human action. From the ordinary level to the divine level. It frees us from the bondage of lower law into the liberty of a higher law. And this happens in three great steps. Step number one is the Karma Yoga. But what is Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is nothing but action without desire. As the Sandhaji was telling, that nothing, that art does not flourish in ego. Actually, nothing flourishes in ego. So the Karma Yoga starts with action without desire. And there are three things to be noted here in this first step. First, give up desire for the result of our work. Number one. Number two, keep perfect equality. And what does it mean? No elation in success, no depression in failure. This is what is called Gita's equality. And number three, do all work as sacrifice to the divine. As sacrifice to the divine means as offering to the divine. Sacrifice means offering to the divine. And who is divine? Who is the supreme supreme self in everything. Ishara sarvabhutanang hriddese arjuna tishtati. Who is the supreme self in everything. So what are the key points? At this stage, we still feel what we feel. We feel I am the doer. I am the doer. In this first stage, in the stage of Karma Yoga, I am the doer. I have done this. I am doing this. We have not yet realized this self in our own being. That Ishara Sarva Bhutanang Hriddese Arjuna Tishtati. I have not realized yet. And that is why I feel I am the doer. I am the karta. I am the doer. I am the doer. So we have not yet realized the self in our own being, but we offer everything to him. But we have not realized him at this first stage, but we are offering everything to him. But in this first stage, Gita's emphasis is on action. In the first stage, Gita's emphasis is on action. Work must continue, but as a selfless service. As a selfless service means as sacrifice. Sacrifice means as offering to the divine without desire, in perfect equality. No elation in success, no depression in failure. So this is the step number 1 of the Gita. So as Maharishi says, the whole argument of the Gita resolves into 3 great steps. This is the first step. So then what is the second step? Second step is the Gyan Yoga. But what is this Gyan Yoga? Second step is Gyan Yoga, knowledge of the true self. In this second stage, we are realizing our true self. We are realizing our true self. So second step is Gyan Yoga, knowledge of the true self. And what changes in this second stage? We give up not only desire for results. A very important point to be noted, in this second stage, in the Jnana Yoga step, in the second step, we not only give up the fruits of action, not only we give up our desire, we give up not only the desire for result, but also the idea that I am the doer. I am no longer the doer in this second stage. In this second stage. But then who is the doer? Who is the doer? So we give up not only the desire for results, but also the idea I am the doer. Number 2, we realize the self is equal. Self is not unequal. Self is equal, inactive and unchanging. As self is inactive, I am not the doer. Self is inactive. Self is not doing the thing. I am not the doer. But in the first stage, I felt I was the doer. But in the Jnana Yoga step, I am feeling I am not the doer because self is inactive. Self is not active. Then who is doing? Who is active? We see that all work is done by Prakriti. All work is done by our Prakritis. Sattva, Tama, Raja. Prakriti is the doer. In the second step, this is what is called Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga includes 3 things. That I have now realized myself. I have realized the self as equal, inactive, unchanging. I have also realized that all work is done by the Prakriti. And what is the nature of the Prakriti? Nature, the universal force that is active and ever changing. But soul is not changing. Self is not changing. Self is immutable. And then what is the key point? Ego's claim. As Sandhaji was saying, art does not flourish in ego. And this is also the crux of the Gita. This is also the crux of the Gita. Nothing flourishes in ego. Nothing flourishes in ego. Though in the first stage, we feel that I am the doer, we are the doer. So the key point is the ego's claim to act drops. Ego's claim to act that I am not acting, I am not doing. So ego's claim to act drops. We watch nature working through us. Nature working through us. So And in this stage, Gita's emphasis is on knowledge. But what is the role of the action? What is the role of Karma Yoga? He says, but work does not stop. But work does not stop. Karma Yoga continues and merges into Jnana Yoga. And that is why we are not calling it three parts. We are calling it Triune part. So in the first step, it was only Karma Yoga. Gita's insistence is only on action. But in the second stage, insistence on Jnana. Jnana includes three things. That Prakriti is doing everything. Prakriti is the universal force that is active and ever-changing, and soul is inactive, unchanging, equal. And here Gita's emphasis is on knowledge, but work does not stop. Karma Yoga continues and merges into Jnana Yoga. This is the Gita's technology. And the third step is Bhakti Yoga. What happens in this stage? Devotion to the Supreme Divine. Devotion to the Supreme Divine. And what we realize here, the Supreme Self is the Purusha. In the first stage, though we were offering all our actions to the Divine, at that stage, we did not realize the Self. Now, we have realized the Self. In the third stage, in the stage of Bhakti Yoga, the Supreme Self is the Purusha, the Divine Being who governs Prakriti. Who governs Prakriti. In the second stage, it was the Prakriti doing all things. But in the third stage, the Supreme Self is the Purusha, the Divine Being who governs Prakriti. Who governs Prakriti. Our individual soul is a part of this Divine. Our individual soul is a part of this Divine. All work is directed by Him from beyond nature. So even Prakriti is not the doer. So Divine is everything behind. And that is why, let me quote a very prominent slok. If you could realize this one single slok, you can get into the heart of the Gita. You can get into the heart of Gita, and it is from the chapter number 11. That is the chapter which is called the Vision, where the sloka is Tasmat Tamuttishta, Tasmat Tamuttishta, Yashul Abhashya, Zitta Satrun, Phungsa Rajya Samriddham, Moeibate Nihata Purvameva. Krishna was telling Arjuna, all were slain already by me. Moeibate Nihata Purvameva, Nimitta Matra Bhavasabhasasin. You become only my occasion, you become only my instrument, you are not the doer. You are not the doer. Moeibate nihata purvameva. Moeibate. So, therefore, do thou arise. Tasmat tamuttishta. Therefore, do thou arise. Get the glory. Having conquered the enemies, enjoy thou an opulent kingdom. By me, verily, all these already slain. Even before this start of the war, Moeibate nihata purvameva. By me, verily are all these already slain. Do thou become the occasion only. Do thou become the occasion only, O Sabbasasin. So this is what happens in the third step. In the third step, so the Supreme Self is the Purusha, the Divine Being who governs Prakriti. Number second, our individual soul is a part of this Divine. All work is directed by Him from beyond nature. What we do then? Offer love, worship, and all work to Him. Surrender our whole being to Him. Number three, raise our whole consciousness to live in His divine consciousness. And the result is, we share in His transcendence. We share in His transcendence. We act in perfect spiritual freedom above nature, yet working through it. yet working through it. Gita's emphasis here on devotion. Knowledge is not lost. But knowledge is not lost. It is raised and fulfilled. Work still continues. So the path becomes the triune way. Knowledge plus work plus devotion. But then what is the fruit of sacrifice? Maharishi says, let me explain. What do you gain at the end? Then? So, we gain at the end union with the divine being and oneness with the supreme divine nature. This is our only gain. Oneness with the divine being and oneness with the supreme divine nature. This is the one goal. This is the single goal, ultimate goal, one goal Gita places before the seeker, reached through sacrifice of desire, ego, and finally of our separate self into the divine. And why this matters in plain words? Start by working without selflessness, karma yoga. Number second, grow by knowing you are not the doer, Gyan Yoga. Number three, complete by loving and surrendering to God, Bhakti Yoga. None of the earlier steps are dropped. Each step includes and fulfills one before it. So this is how the argument of the whole Gita resolving itself into three great steps by which action rises out of the human into the divine plan, leaving the bondage of the lower for the liberty of the higher law. Let me conclude then with the Mahavakya of the Gita. Then what is the Mahavakya of the Gita? And it is there in verse number 61 to 66. Verse number 61 to 66. Verse number 61 to 66 of the last chapter, that is to say, chapter number 18. Chapter number 18. So then, what is then the Gita's Mahavakya? And let me quote from Sri Aurobindo's writing. He has summarized then, that this is the Mahavakya of the Gita. And the relevant verses are from verse number 61 to 66, chapter number 18. What the supreme word of the Gita is, it's Mahavakya. We have not to seek. Why? For the Gita itself declares it in its last utterance. The crowning note of the great diapason. And what are those utterances? With the Lord in thy heart take refuge with all thy being. By his grace thou shalt attain to the supreme peace and the eternal status. So have I expounded to thee a knowledge more secret than that which is hidden. Further, hear the most secret, the supreme word that I shall speak to thee. Become my-minded, devoted to me do sacrifice and adoration. Infallibly thou shalt come to me, for dear to me art thou. Abandoning all laws of conduct, seek refuge in me alone. I will release thee from all sin. Do not grieve. And let me pronounce those slokas, because these six are the summarizing slokas. So 61 is Ishvara Sarva Bhutanang Riddese Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Jantra Ruhrani Mayaya. Then this 62, Tameva Saranang Gatsa Sarva Bhavena Bharat Tat Prasadat Parang Santing Stanang Prapchasi Sasyatam Iti Te Gyanam Akhyatang Gujjatarang Maya যথেষ্টসি তথা কুরু सर्वगुज्जतमं भ्रियः श्रीनु मे परमं वस इष्टुवसी मे दृढ़मिति ततो बक्ष्यामि ते हितम. And 65 and 66 are the most important. Manmana bhava madbhaktu maddaji mang namaskuru mamoi vasessi satyang te pratijane priyosi me sarva dharmang parityajya mamekang saranang braja ahang tang sarva papebbu muksayasyami ma susa. With these words, with my infinite gratitude to Sangeet Natak East Akademi and the Royal Global East University Fraternity, let me conclude here. Thank you and namaskar to all.